Hello, today I'm joined by my guest Jeremy Harford-Tapp from Homeflow. Jeremy, how you doing?
I'm all right, thanks, David. You okay?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, Jeremy. I'm good. We're going to be focused on doing what you guys do best, which is helping agents to generate profitable leads online for an estate agency. And there's a lot of I've spent I think we spoke off camera. I've spent the last few weeks traveling the country talking to agents about what they're doing and where their pinch points are. And the one thing that's almost universal is we all want more leads. And I do a very interesting section of my course where I ask them, where did your last five instructions come from? And so that we all sort of try to work out what the commonality is. But generating those leads from your website and from your own kind of online real estate, if as it were, is obviously very important. But not all websites do it really well. So I suppose what I want to ask you is websites have evolved very quickly. Technology is evolving extremely quickly. There's a sense that if we don't jump on some of the fads right now, we're going to miss the train. But how has the role of an estate agent's website changed over the last few years?
You don't ask small questions, do you? Yeah. Um, Look, I mean, there's a lot in what you just asked. I mean, we could talk a bit about the changing role of a estate agent's website generating more traffic to it, but I think I'd like to go back up stack a bit with what you said at the beginning. Like, if you ask an agent where their leads are coming from, they'll be coming from a multitude of sources, right? Their brand, their reputation, their boards, their walk-ins to branch, their phone relationships, their backbook of their CRMs, kind of all stuff right at the core of their personal service and brand. And as they go out through, they might be getting stuff from their portals, less so newspapers. People don't mention that these days, but their website. And then they might say my email marketing, my social media, my sort of perimeter marketing activities. But I think the reason that the website is so important in that sort of ecosystem, if you like, is that it sits in the foundation of a lot of the rest of your marketing. So if you're doing great social media, whether you're auto posting or AI posting or manual posting or just doing brand posts, all of that traffic, basically, when it comes to get serious, is quite likely to come to your website and have a look at it. And a lot of the links and the blog posts and the area guides and the
Yeah.
properties that you automate going out to social media, a lot of it comes back to that foundation block. If you are doing great SEO and all the work you're doing about building your domain authority or building up your sort of like the content that you're writing in your blog posts and your news articles and yada, 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 that all ends up driving people back to your website. And same for your email marketing. If you're doing your sort of like your nurture journeys and you're spewing out emails at people or you're emailing back, but that all the links for it, all the properties you share, your CRM system sending out email matches, it all comes back to your founding block of your website. And I think that whilst you might get more volume of leads, applicant leads from portals because they provide utility in terms of all the properties are in one place from other agents as
Yeah.
well. So house hunters go there. When someone gets serious about selling their house or becoming a landlord,
They
at
look into
some
the
point in their
agent.
journey,
Yeah,
they are not necessarily,
very
but
true.
much more likely going to land on the foundation. So it's not just about the volume of the leads and how many of your last five leads, but the quality and value of those leads are disproportionately likely to come off your website. So yeah, sorry, back to you.
No. So I mean, look, that's exactly true. All of the above came out in those surveys. So spoken now to perhaps over 100 agents, and there is commonality there. But we all understand that our website needs to be on point in terms of being able to generate leads and process them, handle them, make sure they get to the right place. And there are nuances, aren't there, in terms of both functionality, how we ask questions, where the calls to action are. Probably too much for us to cover today. But what, in your opinion, separates a high-performing estate agency website from just your average one?
Um, well, I think if you're trying to generate more leads off of your website, which is only one of the aims of a website, but if that's your aim, you've only really got two levers you can pull. One is get more people in the front door, and the other is convert more of them to action on your website. And that action is a mixture of phone calls and improved brand impression of your brand so that you can then convert them later, touch point, or an email lead. So I think you can break it down into those two different steps, like getting more people in the front door and converting them more effectively. The other aspects of a really great website, I mean, the brand and design, although that is part of that brand touch that I was just talking about, the brand and design, it's got to look the part. It's got to make people go, I trust this agency. It's got to have the right content on it so they learn about the agency. The words and the look have got to be fantastic. But ultimately, and the service, by the way, that's another really important part, and the availability and the security and the maintainability of the content management system. So there's an awful lot you could talk about. I mean, which aspect do you want to focus on?
Well, just whatever is what I like is obviously I can tell them that go and talk to Homeflow. They know these things much better than I do, and they can help you with it. But what are the sort of things that you would, if an agent could only pick three things to concentrate on, what would you tell them to concentrate on?
Okay, well, first of all, the sales pitch, so duck. What I would say is if they are if they are interested, we do a process called the Site Doctor. As part of our deal with Kerfuffle, you probably know Simon has organized that we do a free mini Site Doctor. I mean, the full ones are like 2 days of work and they
Yeah.
produce 4 hours of video, but the mini Site Doctors are half an hour of work. And the point about them is they're free. Why would you not take them? You'd be silly not to take them, really, because we will do about 4 hours of work and compress it into a half-hour video for them. And we will answer the question for them on their website. They have to be, the only condition is they have to be serious about a conversation. They have to be willing to talk to us. The price is the cost of their attention. So
Okay.
that's the pitch done. In terms of answering your question, I would say that I'd focus. You said two things. I'd focus on two things. I'd focus on the SEO coming in the front door, and I say that notably. I'm not saying GEO and AI, although we have done webinars on that very topic. But I just mean the because SEO is still at the moment more traffic, significantly more traffic than the AI
Then the
traffic.
other, yeah.
However, that world is definitely changing now, and it's changing very quickly. It's changing towards GEO and towards zero-click experiences where people are getting their information, they're having their question answered off of site, but your site is performing a role for providing the information, the credibility, the trust signals, the validation that the AI and LLMs are journeying. So I'd say SEO, which is changing. You need to be on top of both the change and but for most agencies, they need to be on top of the basics of SEO. There's a topic of everyone's excited about the sexy new stuff. Actually, for most agents, the value delivery is much more easy to achieve in fixing the basics because there's no point in running if you can't walk. And
Yeah.
so first you've got to get your SEO working. So that's why I picked that one. Although for anyone who's half good at that, we would immediately move that conversation to understanding the change that's happening in the AI world. So that's topic one. Topic two would be just straightforward form conversion. If you want to boil it down into some real sort of call a spade, I'd say not putting email addresses on your website where the website kind of loses a grip and doesn't know who it's coming from, but putting exposed on deck contact forms, easy and visible, and contrast color buttons. So if your site is green, have an orange button saying contact
Yeah.
us, around the color wheel. I mean, it's really, really basic stuff because if you do it and you measure traffic to end leads generated, you get more. So let's say two things. Ram more people in the front end of the door. And if you're only going to think about one thing, forget social, forget email, think about traffic generation through SEO and now GEO.
Yeah.
And two, when you get the traffic there, make sure you've got clear buttons and or exposed forms. And we could go on into staff profiles and a whole bunch of other things too. But at its most basic level, really clear what we call contact pathways and audit them and just check them out.
No, well, that is great advice. Great advice for agents there. So I'm going to talk to you now about something which is I don't know if it's the elephant in the room, but it is over the years we have become um, well, let's preface this by saying it this way. When online valuations were first introduced to us agents, I remember getting the first iteration of those online valuations, and they were generally pushed by one particular firm at the time. I'm not going to
The pioneer in
the
the space.
pioneers of that space. And it was really interesting because, okay, it was magical, wasn't it? The customer was able to input some details into it. We were capturing their details. They were getting a valuation. It turned their head because we were able to sort of say instant val, click here, and yes, it had all the caveats. In the fullness of time we all got a little bit fed up of it because we also felt that in the long run, the accuracy wasn't amazing in the first iteration of these tools. The journey and the process that agents were taking the customers down could often frustrate them, and there were problems that needed fixing. We are now a good 10 years on from that, and there are several iterations of online valuations. The question that I've been asking agents that I've been interviewing for our upcoming web guide is, have online valuations had their day? And there's some really sort of interesting responses. Some people feel yes, it's gone. Some people wouldn't let go of it. for any amount of money because they still feel value and utility in them. So I'm going to ask you as the expert, they're a very common feature on estate agency websites, but are they still effective?
Am I not allowed to name check the pioneer in space?
You can name
Yeah,
check
yeah, yeah.
whoever you
I think
want.
it's well, I think it's worth noting and celebrating the work that Nat Daniels and Craig Vile and their entire team did. I mean, the Valpal was the pioneer in this space, and totally, I don't know whether they got the idea or whether they invented the idea, but whichever way they did it, they completely broke the market,
Yeah,
and so
$100.
huge credit to them. I think they changed the market, which is great. So now to your question, yes, they're changing, and yes, they're absolutely still an essential part of the mix, but they are changing in terms of their nuance, what they actually do, and the role that they play. They are on about 30% of estate agents' websites in the UK. I know because we do extensive crawling, extensive
Yeah.
auditing, and extensive. We have products in that marketplace ourselves, and we have a lot of intel on it. We also have around 500 websites, and and we measure the leads that come out of those websites and the traffic that goes into those websites. To our point in our discussion earlier. Sorry, my phone's going off there. So we measure very carefully the input and the output, and what I can tell you categorically is that mathematically, if you have 1,000 users come into your website and you put an instant valuation product on your website, you get more valuations out of it, more absolute valuations. What I can also tell you is you don't get as many more as all the various valuation providers tell you get because they steal some of their valuations from regular, what we call hard valuations, or we call them expert or intentful valuations. I.e., I've come to David Mintz Estates and I've said I want a valuation off you. They steal some of that, but they definitely add more on top. And then you can talk about the quality of those leads. You can say, are they earlier in the cycle? Do they, are they serious? Are they tire kicking? They're definitely not as high quality, but some of them are. So do they? And in terms of the cost of the tools, I mean, frankly, the Homeflow tool, which is the next generation of this product, there's a free version of it, and the free version of it is much better than the old generation of tools. We would say that, but it's free. Have a go at it. So it can save you money and it improves your performance. But unless you are sort of somehow religiously opposed to valuation products because you think it doesn't speak to your brand, and there are some rational arguments in there, then mathematically they are important if you care about your first question, which is generating more leads. We could stop there. I could say a lot more about valuations and how we convert them. What do you want to do? It's like
What I was going to, that's where we're headed next, really, because I think your forte very much has become helping agents to effectively, and I'm going to use the word effectively in big capital bold letters, manage their leads once they come in. But once the lead comes in, what tends to sort of go wrong in that follow-up process very often for agents?
okay, I actually like just to go back a little bit to that valuation product, just to finish that off. I think what's changing in the world is A, the accuracy of the engines are much better, and B, the user journey and the nuance in how you explain what you're doing to the customer. You're not saying that customers aren't stupid, right? They understand it's a game, but if you engage in that game with them and give them a little bit of value of a little bit of kind of sold price information inflated and what have you, and you can have other messaging going out to them about what you really need to speak to the team. Here's the human faces are going to talk
Yeah.
to you, and it leads into your next topic. And you can end with a video, like our product ends with a video just to say thanks for your evaluation. I hope you enjoyed that game. It doesn't quite say that, but I hope you enjoyed that. But the only way to really value your house, because there's variables like what the condition is and what you've done on the house and other market factors, blah blah blah, is to talk to an agent. Here we are. This is us right here in front of you. Would you like to flow on through into our lead management sort of system and what have you? So I think we'll come to your next question. So I think that what those valuation products are doing is both softening their pitch, widening and broadening their pitch, becoming more intelligent in the way they handle their pitch, and becoming much nicer in the usability of that pitch. And so
Okay,
they're
that
no
makes
longer. So I'd
sense.
say if you're religiously opposed to the idea of a machine giving a valuation on your website, then I would just say to you, think again, because A, mathematically it will earn you more money, and B, there are lots of answers to the objection of I don't want a machine, it can't do my job. Like there are
Yeah.
lots of answers to how you soften that
It's not
and
there to
engage the human.
replace the job, it's to enhance it and widen that field of
100%,
inquiry. Yeah.
100%. And I think the last point I just make on it is it's just like the SEO and GEO point. There's a real back to basics and a real futurism kind of divide here. So the concrete answer to your question is the back to basics. Yes, agents should do this if they are mathematically and economically interested in earning more money. But the futurist bit is there's a whole lot of stuff coming around the nuance of how it talks to people and how AI can play a role in that, etc., etc. Should we now move to your lead management question? I think what was
Please, because you know what, if all of this flows in as much as we We have now more tools at our disposal to collect leads in, and it's the conversion of those leads into real life inquiries that we can monetize is where the agents are focused. But we're not all great at it, are we? So yeah, my question is what can go wrong in that sort of follow-up process once a lead comes in?
Yeah. Well, about a year ago, you and I were on stage together sequentially. You
Yeah.
did a presentation, I did a presentation. I don't know if you remember my presentation, but at the time it was called Mind the Gap. And Mind the Gap was about a tube station and a tube train coming in. And the analogy was like your website is your platform, and your CRM system is the train that's just come in. And there is a gap between the platform and the train, and you need to not fall into the gap. And a lot of the value gets destroyed in the getting in and out of the, in between those two systems. And lead management, in its broadest terms, is the topic of minding the gap and sort of like, being slick. Because, one thing's for sure, the lead's not generated in your CRM system. The other thing's for sure is the customer relationship is not managed in your website. So somehow
Yeah.
we've got to bridge that gap effectively. And that bridging of that gap has a mixture of technology in it and humans in it. It used to be all the technology was firing an email at the agent and they would pick up the phone or type it into their CRM. And then there were things like AppImp and and all the different processes for gobbling the emails, putting them in the CRM. Then there are systems that will auto respond to emails, and then there was the concept that actually the portals are generating, as we talked right back at the beginning of our conversation, right? Because
Yeah.
Zoopla are generating a lot of volume. And then there is all the human conversation, and then now there's all the angst about, oh, I don't want a robot talking to my leads or responding, or a WhatsApp chat agent, or a text chatbot, or a voice agent here, or an email automation. I mean, crikey, there's this real uncomfortable change going on between what's the role of the human expert that
Yeah.
ultimately the person needs to speak to for a very high value transaction, and the technology automation, which ultimately is going to be much better at you at responding to every single lead, or just the underpinnings of the system that makes sure that all the leads are in one inbox and they're not missed. And there's service levels running on them, and we're counting a clock in working hours so that you, as an owner manager, can work out how your business is
It's
responding.
it's accountability as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and different people, lead management as a field, different people like different aspects of it. Some managers like I need to know that every single scrap of value that walked in the front door gets actioned by my team and gets actioned well. Some people want to use it for phone recording and training. Some people want to use it for actually doing auto response. Some people want to use it for surveys to make sure their team are reliably and consistently asked if they have a house to sell, which is just like, everyone says and thinks they're quite good at it. If you actually go and survey it, nearly all of our customers, when they start, discover there's a big gap that they can
Well,
close.
you've sort of answered my next question was going to be what does good lead management actually look like? But you've thrown several elements in there that constitute great, fantastic, exceptional lead management. But so I'm going to ask you a different question if you don't mind. The difference between standard lead management and good lead management, it can does it deliver a significant increase in business ultimately for that agent?
Of course, it's being good with your customers, deliver better experience for your customers and get you more business. Of course it does. We spend a lot of time hiring great staff, teaching them how to answer phones and to respond to emails and be professional, making sure they do that quickly, promptly, and politely, and that they're good at sales. And now, technology has a role in there. I don't know how far up you want to come. It depends on your type of agency, your personal appetite for that, and how futurist you want to be versus back to basics. But even if you were right at the back to basics end of the spectrum, then good looks like having every lead in one measurable place and responding to them. Or at least saying, I'm not responding to that proportion of it, but I understand I'm not responding to it because I can't effectively make it economical. This proportion over here is the pure gold. I'm going to focus my experts on that. And as you get more and more nuanced, it might be I have valuers who I put on the valuable stuff. I have negotiators, just like Foxtons in the old days in their call center. You had to do your groundwork of your first year in the call center before they let you graduate and go to the branch and what have you and
Yeah.
be on the front line. It's the same with technology, right? Like there's some leads at the bottom of the funnel where a lettings property comes out, low value lettings property, and you get 40 applicants for it. But the best one in the world, very few agents call them all and give them excellent service and ask them all the questions. Some people send out PDFs, forms, questions, what have you. But amongst those 40 applicants, there are a couple, because you only need one really good tenant, but there are probably 5 or 10 who are really good. And so having some kind of automation systems that help you parse, qualify that probably makes sense for most agencies. Um,
Well, it's a webinar and it's 2026, and it would not be a webinar or 2026 without me asking or mentioning the words AI. We speak about technology, we speak about automation. There is what one agent said to me. I asked them what they struggle with, and they said, and a slightly older agent, I think, from a more mature pedigree, let's put it that way, says that what worries them is keeping on top of the changes with things like AI. There's a sense that the train is leaving the station and they're not sure if they're even in the right carriage, never mind on the right train. There's an awful lot of talk about it. Every supplier in the world, every supplier, it doesn't even matter, they can be selling you a ruler to measure a room with. It will have some sort of AI functionality. We're all talking about AI. We're all trying to include it because we feel that our customers want to see it. Um, on the other hand, there is this anxiety with AI. Where's it going to go? What are the friction points with our clients? Does it get us closer to them? Are we, this is principally will always be a people business. Therefore, what role does AI have to play? So it's a huge topic to discuss, and I'm not proposing we put that one to bed today. But I want to ask you, from your point of view, how do you see AI affecting estate agency marketing and lead management in the future?
Right. Wow. Another super broad range question, obviously. I will tell your old estate agency mate that he can join the back of the queue, or she can join the back of the queue, in terms of fear and excitement and or confusion. Because like even for, let's say, me, and I work in a technology business, all I've done all my career is work in deep tech and software around, around this industry and what we're doing with it. And the pace of change at the moment and the confusion is enormous. And we're fully all in on this stuff. We're like really, really interested. We have teams of people who are building products which have got AI in them, using AI to build those products, using AI for our automations ourselves, using AI within our sales processes. So we're probably quite well qualified in that we're right in the mix, in the crucible of exploring it. But it's confusing for anybody, no matter how technical you are. So that's point number one. Point number two is age. And I may be older than I look, because I've certainly been learning about the ages of some of our team and our staff, because I've been saying that the only time I've ever felt this confused, excited, and worked this hard in my whole career was 97, 98, 99, around Web 1.0, and the dot-com boom and bust, which we lived through. And I had a business that went through that whole
Yeah,
era.
that whole
And,
cycle.
and this dwarfs mobile, this dwarfs social, this dwarfs Web 2.0. This is definitely
So we
like
were
the
right
internet.
to have that sense of excitement, trepidation.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely. But when you go into this moments of utter confusion, very fast pace of change, I mean, like, we've been talking about it as technology and marketing companies for a few years. It's been getting clearer and clearer. The last year or two, products have been starting to arrive about it. And right now, as in right now, I don't, we're filming this in March 2026, but right now, I think we're on that point where the acceleration is becoming, oh, consumers are seeing it. They're seeing
Yeah.
it arriving in their phones. They're seeing it arriving in their email inboxes, like summaries. They're seeing it arriving in their products. It's just like right, and they're seeing it arriving in their
And
business
and we've
processes.
sort of lifted the veil because we were all sort of very anxious about AI. We thought, okay, we can use AI, but our customers shouldn't know we're using it. Now there's
Yeah.
the sense that the gloves are off. We're all just saying, yeah, we use AI, have a
Yeah,
go.
yeah, but it's the world, right? I mean, you're going to be booking train tickets. You're going to be like, it's gravity. I mean, anyone who sort of says that we're not going to be doing it is like it's gravity. It's just like it's coming. How fast it comes and where it comes. And within that, the voice of sanity says, stick to the basics, get the basics right. You need to worry about this, but you don't need to panic about this. You still need to get your contrast colors on your buttons and your forms. That's still more important at the moment, and it probably will be for a few months or a year or two. Okay, so there is definitely a kind of like, don't throw baby out with bathwater and leap in. So you get lots of suppliers who just badge anything AI. And the other point I want to make about during times of turmoil, everyone's an expert. Right? And that's because nobody's an expert, because it's all changing, everyone's confused. And what you end up finding is lots and lots of loud voices, my own included, yours included, lots of people scrambling around seeing the latest thing. And then those people who speak about it, people say, they're an expert. Have you heard what they're talking about? Have you heard what they're doing? And so
Yeah.
the cacophony, and I just remember around Web 1.0. I mean, it was so bonkers that everyone was an expert on the internet. Everyone knew what was going, and
That's the beauty of the
95% of it,
Wild West. Anyone
yeah,
that has a hat is a cowboy. That's the way
there you go.
it is.
That's it. That's it. And I just say, look, to qualify that, we're definitely riding the horse and have been riding the horse for some time, and we're right in the middle of this circus. Okay, so I would say that we can definitely help and give you some views on effective AI, but to be an AI denier, to not understand that it's going to change your business, to not understand it's going to change your business processes or your marketing or your products, is just like to deny
So
gravity.
then just to throw it into your sort of your real forte. So when it comes to lead management, when it comes to the way that agents handle inquiries and follow up with potential vendors, where do you see AI improving that process?
But of course, let's not forget the basic websites as well. So it started off and it came in first in content generation, writing articles, writing area guides, helping you design photos, design images, design brands, what have you, writing your tone of voice, doing text chat, what have you. And then as you go into lead management, it's more about the active response. It's more about, can it respond to emails? Can it suggest responses to emails? Can a human be in the loop? Can it have a text chat with you? Can it have a WhatsApp chat with you? Can it have a voice chat with you? Can it or can it just like in your software help you say analyze and like complex situation from the customer? Here's a
Yeah,
five-line summary of
th-
what it's doing.
that's
All,
very useful as
all
well.
of the above being things that I'd say that we either have product for or are building product for and are looking at. But I just say so, it's coming. And there will be like there will be agents who go, no way, never. I'm sort of religiously opposed to it at the moment, kind of deniers. And then there will be people who are, I'm all in. I know more about this than you. I'm betting my whole business on it, like early adopters. And then there's a sensible middle ground of people who are trying to make sense of and pick and pull together the best bits, try and separate the wheat from the chaff, get rid of the noise, and work out what's effective. And they're gonna, with the rest of us, muddle their way through and find out which of that cowboys had the real hat and land on the thing that's effective. 95% of it will drop away, and those businesses come and go. And underneath it, there'll be some real solid, completely different looking businesses in 3 or 4 years' time.
Well, Jeremy, I've got loads of more questions and we're fast running out of time, but got good news. I'm going to invite you and your 10-gallon Stetson back to talk to us again. And we will follow up because I do think that the technology is evolving at such a fast pace, particularly around how we effectively convert leads, handle leads, manage leads. But ultimately, and what I love about what you've said today is you keep bringing it back to customer service. How, and you asked that question, a better level of customer service has to be a good thing for your ability to convert business as an agent. Um, we when we do ask you to sort of give us some information, we sometimes ask for standout stats, and I just want to bring two of those stats up here and ask you to comment on them, perhaps as the closing section to our discussion today. And we will have another one soon. But one of the standout stats that you gave us was that up to 50% of agency inquiries never receive a meaningful follow-up. That sort of echoes the kind of things that you hear in places like, the EA Masters will always talk about how some agents ignore inquiries or don't
Mm,
respond properly. So sometimes auto a simple automated follow-up that isn't meaningful is worse than than not
yeah,
following up at all.
yeah,
But
yeah.
the other thing that I wanted to ask you was, and this really did catch my eye, because you've used the word unusual and it did pique my interest. You said Homeflow is unusual in successfully servicing clients from hundreds of single office agencies through local and regional networks to corporate groups with over 1,000 branches. So I want to um, you obviously are dealing with lots of people and these single office agencies, I think, are the cream of the crop, really, in terms of independent agencies have to work harder very often. They don't have all the resource of bigger corporate groups. And therefore, we're always, they've been the lifeblood of their local marketplaces for years, and they're very good at what they do. So I love the fact that you are successfully servicing those clients, first of all. But 50% of all agency inquiries never receive a meaningful follow-up. How so? How are we that bad at it?
Well, so there's two topics there. The first is just a fact, like like if you look at and you do any kind of sort of mystery shopping, and or if you have clients and you help them analyze it, there's an incredible portion of leads that go unanswered. I think most of it is probably the low value stuff at the sort of like the lettings inquiries, and we have quite a few clients who just admit they just think I'm bankrupt on that. I can't possibly respond to the volume. I only need one good tenant, and it goes back to our earlier conversation. And I think that there's what you're trying to do with effective, sort of almost reopening our topic. What you're trying to do with effective lead management is you're trying to sort the gold from the iron ore, from the whatever's worse than iron ore. Okay, and the trouble is in iron ore there is iron, and I think that therefore economically you use a machine to sort the lower stuff, and you try and have the machine not look unhuman and try and surface the good stuff and elevate it and score it and bring it to your attention. And you certainly don't want a machine handling the really high value transactions of actually convincing someone to place an offer in a house because A, there's not a robot, blah, blah. It's kind of obvious, right? There's a spectrum. Then
Yeah.
to your second point of Homeflow serving the very biggest and the very smallest, I mean, look, I think I probably said the words unusual. I don't know where those words came from, but I probably said the words unusual because we have competitors at the top end of the market and we have competitors at the bottom end of the market, but we don't really have competitors who span both ends of the market like we span both ends of the market. And my argument for why that's great is some of those bigger agencies and the biggest agencies in the UK, they have an awful lot of resource, right? They have engineers on staff, they have marketing teams like that are big, they have digital marketing specialists in all those subcategories, they have SEO teams within their organizations. And so they require a supplier who really takes them to the next level. They push much harder at a central level and they have much higher standards of security, speed, SEO auditing, conversion, accessibility. Now, their problem is their reach expands sometimes beyond their grasp, right? They're leveraged over across huge, and I'm talking about 20 branch agencies even, and down to 5 branch agencies. Their reach is bigger than necessarily the owner's grasp. And then you get to the other end of the spectrum, and you get owner managers who probably don't have the level of resource, capability, research, money that some of those bigger organizations have. I mean, you've only got to build one website. You've got to build it if you're a single branch independent, or if you're a 100 branch Goliath, you've still got to build
Yeah.
a website. Now, obviously, the bigger websites are more complex and more involved and have more content on them, but still all the basics are there. But the strongest businesses, as you said, are often owner managed, and that's because the quality in the humans is the best, right? They care, they'll fight to the death for their customers because they own the business. And they've been in the town perhaps for 30 years, and because of that quality, they've not necessarily scaled and expanded. Some successful ones scale up to 3, 5, 10 branches and build big businesses, but some just sit there with one office or two offices and become what we call super agents. And we tend to serve super agents more than we serve the single branches who have only 5, 10 properties because we're a bit premium pricing. But nonetheless, those are probably the strongest businesses in many of the towns in the UK. And they need to benefit from all of that enterprise grade quality. They need a website that serves in sub 2 seconds, ideally 0.7 second load
Yeah.
times. They need a website that's got the very best technology for adapting to GEO. So there you go, pitch over. It's like
And
that's
and
why
and
we're
I
helping
think
them.
we're living unwittingly in the golden age, actually, where this is now more affordable for independents than ever before. There was a time where we couldn't compete, but I think companies like yourselves are able to give us the advantage now that these big corporate bodies used to have because they had more resource. It's a lot more affordable than people think. There are some lovely, very helpful people out there, like the good people at Homeflow and Jeremy and his team. Jeremy, I'm just going to thank you for today. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks. Can I leave you with two thoughts? And
Sure.
that are those two thoughts are number one, we mentioned the site doctor. If you're interested, please just email us. And we also do benchmarking reports of your AI visibility. And all you need to do is email benchmarking@homeflow.co.uk for either of those two things. They are genuinely completely free. The price is your attention, but they will help you. We guarantee that we'll give you some helpful advice in that. And it's just like forming a relationship. Sorry, David, that's my
No,
I couldn't
no, no.
resist.
Well, it's all free and it's all value add, and you don't need to use their services. So
No, yeah, yeah.
but if you do, you're going to see a difference. Thank you very much, Jeremy. Thank you.
Thanks, David.